the 22nd Georgia State Convention of Alcoholics Anonymous. Let's open the meeting with a moment of silent meditation or prayer, followed by praying together the Serenity Prayer. Second Convention, State Convention, and hope that you enjoy it as much as I am enjoying it. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, we had 856 registered for this convention. And it's really amazing considering that weather out there. I was driving down the road a little while ago, and I got to thinking, Dean is doing a wonderful job on this convention, but he forgot to bribe the weatherman. Either that or our higher power decided to see if we wanted to be here as badly as we used to want a bottle. And I think maybe that's it. If there are members of the news media present, we welcome you. We ask you, please, if you do write anything about the convention, or if you publish it, you're also welcome to. But please, use only first name and the initial of the surname. Because as all of us know, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of this fellowship. Shout your own membership from the housetops if you wish. Please respect others' anonymity. And what you hear and see here, please leave it here. One thing I'd like to say, if no one today has told you they loved you, let me be the first to say, I love you. Each and every one of you. And this is something that AA has given to me. The ability to love and accept love. Anyone wishing tapes of this convention, if they'll see Jerry over here in our press corps, I think he can take care of everyone. We have hospitality rooms back here that are opening about 8 o'clock in the morning and staying open until. They're not like production. I think Bob F. from Savannah, our state delegate.
Thank you, Bill. I am Bob Fowler. I am a member of AA from the Free State of Chatham. Hi. God, Susan, look what they did for you. I think we should send a telegram over to the Executive House to let those new arrivals know that we're having a meeting over here. There's a lot of confusion over there in the lobby. No fooling. The people don't know where to register. They don't know where to come to the meetings. And I expect that this other side of the room would be filled up in the next 30 minutes if they knew what was going on. If they knew what they were missing, they'd have to go get drunk. So if they don't come, don't tell them. In AA, we have a lot of things to help us stay sober. And among them, and among the most important, I think, is the Big Book. That's the basics of AA as I understand it. And at this time, I'm going to ask Maggie to read the 12 steps.
My name is Maggie Mitchell, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. I'm from the First Step Soul Group of Augusta. And I'm reading how it works from the 5th chapter of the Big Book. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who could not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunate. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands vigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the results was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember, we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all powers. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at a turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abundance. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such person wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening, as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us have been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after made clear 3 pertinent ideas. A, that we were alcoholics and could not manage our own lives. B, that probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C, that God could and would if he was sought.
Thank you, Mikey. You see that didn't bite, did it? This meeting is on the program as a general service meeting. And I think all meetings are general service meetings. You know, the AA triangle depicts 3 sides, as most triangles do. There have been some triangles that had more than that in it, I think, but they were not on the board. Recovery, unity, and service. Without recovery, there can be no unity and no service. Without unity, there is little recovery and no service. And without service, there will be a restricted number of recoveries in the future. So I think any time we talk about AA, we're talking about service. That's the vehicle whereby we deliver our goods. And all we have to deliver is the hope of sobriety to the suffering alcoholic. We're not selling anything, we're not promoting anything except sobriety. And that's the purpose of this meeting, as all the others. But since it was billed as a general service meeting, and our speaker is from the General Service Office, I'm going to take the liberty to acquaint you with some of our other General Service people. Our delegate for panel 26 is Al R. from Clarkston. Al, stand up. He's the one that'll make your mistakes for the next 2 years. Most of you notice next person that I'm going to ask to stand up. And she says she wouldn't make any mistakes if I didn't tell her to. Well, I've been home with a lot of them, and I haven't been given credit for all the mistakes I've made. But those of you who don't know Lillian, I want you to get acquainted with her. Lillian, stand up. She is Secretary of our State Assembly. And her right-hand man, who, if your group sends contributions to the Assembly, and I hope it does, because they need it, Fox will count it and give you credit for it. Fox, stand up. And I don't know how many of them are here, but there are a number of our past delegates here. I wish all of you would stand up, will you? Joe, Virgil, Neely. That is Joe, Virgil, and Neely. In case all of you didn't see them, I thought possibly there were more, and I didn't want to slight any of them. I will join that select group of X's next year, and I will be in Albany in 76, the good Lord willing. He has made it possible for me to attend each convention held in the state of Georgia except the first one, which was here in Augusta. And I had other pressing business at that time which prevented my being here. But since we had the second one in Savannah in 1956, I have made it a point to have no business on the weekend of the convention. Damn little any other time. I was asked to chair this meeting and not talk to you, and I'm not going to. But I think it is appropriate that you know just a little bit about what we're trying to do. Those of you who don't. I had the privilege of chairing a meeting in my home group, and I still think that is the basic root of AA is the individual group. I know it is. The other night, and I explained the little system we use there for raising money for General Service Office, the birthday plan. I know many groups have it and many don't. But here's a man that's been there attending meetings for 3 years. And he said it was the first time he ever knew what that chart on the wall was for. Well, my curiosity would make me ask in less than 3 years, or at least go up and smell of it. Our general service area in the state of Georgia is made up of the GSRs from your group, the district committeemen elected by the GSRs for each district in the area, and a delegate, a secretary, elected by the GSOs. Our business is transacted at the assembly meetings. We found out from experience that a convention was not the place to carry on AA business. It was a place to carry on AA sobriety and fellowship, to become better acquainted with each other, to share our experience, strength, hope, and love with each other. And that's why we're in Augusta this beautiful weekend. And it is beautiful if it rains. What sort of grass would you have if it didn't rain? Very little. Our speaker for this evening has been at General Service Office for several months. I first met her at the conference in April. She was secretary of the group of which I was a member, the Conference Report and Charter Committee. And she knew a whole lot about what she was doing. I had the privilege of hearing part of her story at the banquet on Monday night last April when we were in New York. And having worked with Susan closely during that week in New York, I came to love her more than I did when I saw that tag saying that she was a member of the fellowship. She said she didn't want but an hour and a half this afternoon. You see, she's older than she looks. She's really 23 instead of 21. And she, like the rest of us, had to qualify to get here. And it ain't easy to get in here. You've got to hurt. You've got to do things that work on your conscience. You've got to shake. And she doesn't rattle and roll. She's not that old yet. Without taking up any of her time, any more of it, it is my pleasure to give you Susan Coyle from the General Service Office.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan Coyle, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm also a reasonably happy alcoholic, and I got that way in Alcoholics Anonymous. Very grateful to be invited to your convention this weekend. When it was mentioned that they wanted someone from the staff here, they said, "Do we have anyone interested?" And my hand went up. I wanted to come down south and just get to know what it's like here. And I don't need to explain it except that we're all alcoholics, and I know very little about the South. And of course I know Bob, and I'm just happy that I had the opportunity. When I got on the plane this morning, I thought I brought everything except an umbrella and toothpaste and a few other things. But the ride was a little rough, and I was here about 3 years ago, sober, not to attend a convention, but to do some teacher training in Alma, Georgia. And I remember that I was doing that for a company, and they were setting up a model cities. And I came down on one of those 6-seater Beechcrafts into Alma, Georgia. And it was the bumpiest ride, and got there, and I'd already looked up Alcoholics Anonymous, and there were 5 members there. Now, we only stayed a few days, so I did not call. But wherever I go, the first thing I make sure is that there's a meeting available or there's a contact. Now, I think that I want to share with you a little bit about how I got here, and then maybe talk about what it's like now and what it's like working in the office serving you at the General Service Office. I received a letter from Dean, your host committee chairman, and he thought that maybe we could talk about service. And the only way I could talk about it would be to, first of all, read something from Bill W. It sort of gets me started because I can't say it anyway except to share with you what he said. I was not as lucky as some of you to get to know Bill because I came in and heard him in 1969 at the dinner, but did not know what it was like many years ago. I was still, I guess, growing up. In this pamphlet, which is called AA's Legacy of Service, Bill says, our 12th step is carrying the message, is the basic service that the AA Fellowship gives. This is our principal aim and the main reason for our existence. Therefore, AA is more than a set of principles. It is a society of alcoholics in action. We must carry the message, else we ourselves can wither, and those who haven't been given the truth may die. Hence, an AA service is anything whatever that helps us to reach a fellow sufferer, ranging all the way from the 12th step itself to a 10-cent phone call and a cup of coffee, and to AA's General Service Office for national and international action. The sum total of all these services is our third legacy of service. All that means to me is that by you sitting here today and me getting on that plane this morning is that we are involved in carrying the message. It's not just a fellow sufferer who's out there drinking, but it's right here keeping one another sober today. I picked up a drink when I was probably in my early teens. I came from a very heavy drinking family. And when I was younger, I had buck teeth and thick braids, and I had loads of friends, but I was very insecure. And the minute I picked up my first drink of alcohol, it seemed to give me this security or this feeling that I could sort of come closer to you, or just gave me that confidence. My being exposed, I guess around the age 16 to alcohol was that I hung around older people. I went on college weekends then, and they were always drinking around the clock. I'm sure it was partly environment, partly my background, that I sort of felt sometimes the cocktail hour was more important in our household than we were. But it doesn't make any difference. I'm sure that maybe that's happened to lots of people. When I went on to college, I was on social probation the first month I got there for taking a swig in my dormitory. They said, if you don't report yourself, Susan, we will. So I had to go and report myself to the honor system, and they campused me till Christmas. And that was the beginning. I was exposed to a New England college atmosphere where the milk punch was made Saturday morning, and it was consumed all day. What I did, though, was I observed how other girls my age drank. And somehow their glass of beer went up to the keg of beer once, and mine went up 10 times. I was blacking out then, and I used to get in my car and drive back to school and would hit snowbanks and somehow always seemed to get out of these skids because I had a six-pack of beer at my side. Now, when it came time to come out of school at age 21, I was very unprepared for this adult life. And the first thing I did was follow in my sister's footsteps. She got married when she graduated from college, so that's what I did. I had, the summer I wrote out my wedding invitations. I know I was in blackouts all summer. I don't even remember what I wrote or my thank you notes. I remember one thank you note I wrote said, "Thank you for whatever you gave me." I asked my father to give me 2 shots of vodka to go down the aisle, and that's what happened. Now, my husband at that time was going to become a lawyer, so when we got back from our honeymoon, he said, "Susan, we're not going to drink during the week." And that was the first no that was ever told to me, I mean, at least by him. And I did exactly the opposite. I think I crossed the border into alcoholism right then and there, because he told me no, I had to become a sneak. And you people know what that's all about. I became a sneaky drunk, and every day after school, I got a job teaching school, and every day after school I came home and poured myself a drink, a glass of sherry, but it turned into be a pint and then a quart. I felt that I deserved a drink. Everybody who teaches 65-year-olds a day deserves a drink. That's what I thought. And by the time he came home, I was in a blackout or passed out. Now, I have no explanation for this whatsoever, except that alcoholism is a disease, and I had it. And I didn't know what to do. I looked around at all the women in the community, the other school teachers, and they had bright, clear eyes. And mine were so damn bloodshot every morning that I had to get up at 6 o'clock to try to fix them. And it was a real chore. Get up and put the eye stuff in, make it clear, and shake and have some coffee. I knew if I took a morning drink, I couldn't go to school. He started law school. Now, this was another excuse for me to drink. I felt, well, I'm putting him through, and I noticed that no other wives on this campus are doing that. They all have money or something, and therefore I deserve to drink. But then again, inside me, I could not understand what was happening. Well, needless to say, I was sent to a psychiatrist, and I tried to be like a wise ass with him too. I mean, I would just sit there and stare at him, and he said, "You want to talk?" And I said, "You're using client-centered therapy, and I have nothing to say." And he saw me on and off for about 2 years. Now, during those 2 years, I seemed to not find enough to do after school, so I went to graduate school. Now, remember, I also had my youth at that time, so whenever I drank, it seemed if I had something to do, I could stop drinking to go to class. And don't ask me how, I did it. So we were both in school, and I was working. Vacations were terrible. I went on benders, and yet I seemed to, at the end of it, get a degree at the age of 25. But I had progressed into alcoholism totally. Now, the one thing this shrink told me was that I should try Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's why when I finally got sober, I went back and told him that I was sober, because he was the first person that did plant the seed. I was desperate. My day consisted when, at that time, of driving up north about 20 miles, shaking in the morning to teach school. I knew all the liquor stores. I'd have to get my pints. And I knew that I was in trouble one day when I decided to bring my bottle in my purse into my classroom and put it in the supply closet. And I knew that I better find some help. So he told me about this meeting, and I went. I went to the first AA meeting at age 25. And I remember it vividly. This man came up to me and he said to me, welcome. If you have the disease of alcoholism and continue to drink, it will only get worse, never better, because it's physically and mentally and spiritually progressive. And I listened to the talks, and I said, thank you very much, John. When I get to be your age, I'm too young to be an alcoholic. I will come back, and that's in about 40 years. And that was a very stupid thing to say, because the progression set in at that very second. The progression set in so that the world tumbled underneath me. It just caved in. And I continued to drink, and the first thing that went was my marriage. And my husband didn't stick around to live with an alcoholic. It must be hell. I think, finally worked through the 8th and 9th step, and also could understand maybe 2 or 3 years ago why that happened. In a blackout, I told him to leave, but I didn't realize what I had done. And the next morning, when we discussed it, he said that he just could not live with an alcoholic. He had to study for his bar exams, and it was impossible. Now, the next thing that happened to me was my job. I was on tenure, and I had been in that school system for well over 5 years, and they called me in. They wanted me to take a health leave, but I resigned quickly in the middle of the year and said, oh, I'm going to teach overseas where they'll appreciate me. And then the hospital started. And there were lots of drying out places, and one attempt, I guess, at an overdose of pills, which landed me in a psychiatric hospital and then a state hospital for a year. I was put away for a year, solid. And I was 27 years old. Now, there were AA meetings in the state hospital that I went to, but I said, why fight this? Join this. I was a hopeless person at that time. And when I got to that stage, I didn't know any other way of life except to drink. I had to drink medicinally, and I had to drink because I was an alcoholic. So every time I had a free pass, I would go to bars and be back in the hospital. I tried to get a job, and I refused to come home because I knew my parents were the only people that cared about me anymore. And so I would go into the town of Poughkeepsie, and try to find a job as a typist. And I just could not survive on the outside world. I needed desperately, I think, a long rehabilitation. And we know where we can get that right here. But I didn't know how to, really. I mean, I just didn't. When I finally, my parents said that they would take me in. Now, that's pretty embarrassing at age 27 to go home. but that's what I had to do. They said provided I attended Alcoholics Anonymous, and therefore I had been, in and out of this program for a couple of years, and I could not stay sober. I think, again, there it was, the being forced or not being ready. But by the time I got a typing job, thinking I could never go back to being a professional person again, I started attending meetings and started getting involved. By this time I was divorced, involved with a man who was a social drinker. And I only share this with you because this is the influence that I had at that time. He could drink normally and I couldn't. And my resentment built up. And we would go skiing on weekends, and when I had it in my head that they would say, here comes Susan, you better get her lots of Coca-Cola. And it was, while they were all drinking, I was drinking my Coca-Cola. And it had been almost a year without a drink. And one weekend I had some hard cider. And by the time I got home a week later, I was drunk. I was very sick, and that lasted about 2 weeks. I called Alcoholics Anonymous myself. The first time my husband called. The second time my parents called. This time I called myself. And 2 people came down to Greenwich Village to 12-step me. They stayed with me all day. And somehow that must have been my total turnover to this program. I just wanted to do it the AA way more than anything else. More than anything else in this world, I wanted to be sober and do it any way you told me. They told me that I really needed to go to a place, and I said, no, I don't want to. You go there and you get these pills, and then in 5 days you feel wonderful and you come out again, and that's about it. So they said, all right, we'll take you to a meeting tonight and we'll go see a doctor tomorrow. So I went to a meeting that night, and I guess I had a can of beer. That was January 28th, 1969, and I have not had a drink since. I went to the meeting that night shaking with the dry heaves, and I spent most of the meeting in the girls' room. The next day saw a doctor who treats a lot of alcoholics, and he gave me these anti-convulsive pills, and I was able to stay out of a hospital and do it your way. And that was total commitment to this program, one day at a time. I started going to meetings every day, sometimes 3 a day. There are over 500 meetings in New York City, so I could go at noontime, I could go to a beginner's, I could go to a regular, and even a midnight. And it became my life. And that's why when I say I'm reasonably happy I did get that way in Alcoholics Anonymous. It gets better. Each day got better. I somehow, after about 3 months, had this feeling inside me that there was a miraculous change in that I no longer forced myself. I no longer carried my body to Alcoholics Anonymous. I wanted to go. And that's the part that is really the third step. I loved going. I loved you. You made me feel better. Some people would say, some guy said to me, Susan, you look cleaner. And I thought, what does that mean? I said, I've taken a bath every day, drunk or sober. And I knew exactly what he meant. I mean, somehow in building up time and sobriety, there's something that happens to us. And it happens to us physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And so I knew what he meant, and I thought it was a wonderful adjective, because I've seen it in other people. And it just happens in your face. I saw it in my sponsor. She seemed to, from having a clouded, frowned face, turn into a face that was truly serene. I did get a sponsor, and I have two sponsors. I think it's very important that I make sure that one or the other is available. And I started to get active. Now, the group that I joined was called Trafalgar, and it's nicknamed Traflaky. The reason why they say that is it's a very, very big group, and I got active in it. After about 4 months of sobriety, a young people's group began downtown, and that was in 1969. And I was the first secretary of the young people's group. We had about 25, and I'll never forget the day that a 15-year-old came to tell his story. And I knew then that I was no longer too young to be a... I did what my sponsor told me, to never say no. And that was it. If somebody said, will you come speak or talk to this person, that's what I did. I was told from the beginning to always go up and thank the speaker. That was a way where I knew I would have to go talk to somebody different. I was also told to stay after and go for coffee. And that's how I got sober, hanging around coffee and talking. And the group that I belong to also has a step meeting. So I went to a step meeting every week. And my sponsor started me getting into the 4th step and the 5th step. And somehow we're from the school that we redo them over and over again. I think there seems to be 2 schools. Some people take them all except the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And other people go back and do them over and over. And you know, it's absolutely beautiful. I learned so much from every individual's experience on how they work the steps, because the steps are the program. And at my job last week, one of the letters that came in to me was from one of the New York City groups. And it was a petition, and it said, we are very appalled at the action taken by GSO in eliminating the word suggested with the steps. And these are the type of letters that I guess I have to sit down and answer. And I spent one whole morning doing research on it, because I wanted to be able to have the right kind of answer for this group. And it is not really an opinion or a way of doing things, because everything in this program is suggested. But the steps are the program. And in some of the wall-hanging shades that are in the groups around New York, or in some of the pamphlets, it says 12 suggested steps. And so I guess as a result of the delegate last year at the conference, he recommended that we take the suggested out of that and put it the way Bill said in the big book. Here are the steps we took as suggested as a program of recovery. So big deal. It's just the use of semantics, how much we talk over things like suggested, or did you do the 4th step this way? Have you taken it forever? I mean, this is the type of things that go, we're alcoholics, and I find it fascinating. I don't have any answers, but I can see that if I read all of the stuff that Bill wrote and reread it over and over again, the answers are right there in the big book. And it says it on that page, that the steps are the program. Of course, the program is only suggested, and you can do whatever you want with the program. but to me it means I better get into the steps because it's a new way of living. When going back to after a couple of years of sobriety, I had an opportunity to move out to the West Coast for 2 years, and I was very scared about doing something like that because of AA. And I asked my sponsor whether I should, and she said there are no successes or failures, provided you don't take the first drink and you go to lots of meetings. She said, it will be fine, and we'd love to see you come back. And the only reason why I share this is that I think we can do anything we feel is right to do, provided we don't take the first drink. I moved out there and, again, was very, very withdrawn the first month in AA because everybody said, hi. And pretty soon after a month, I was saying hi and was being just part of the group. In New York, they don't do that. I got involved in a women's group out there, a women's AA group, which I had never done before, and got active in that. When my job ended after a year and a half out in California, I was working for a learning corporation writing children's programs, and that's how I ended up in Alma, Georgia, using this program. The job ended and I was laid off, and for the first time in my life I was down collecting unemployment. And I thought, this is what a lot of my friends did when they first came into AA, and now I know what it's like. But I could not stay unemployed for long. It's very important that I work. It's very important that I have a routine every day. I don't really know what to do with my free time except to go to meetings. So after the job ended, I called up the school that I had taught in, this private school in New York, and they said, we'd love to have you come back. Now, these are some of the benefits of sobriety that I never would have believed would happen to me. First of all, I had told the director of the school that I was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I broke my anonymity. And still, I thought, well, maybe she won't hire me again. And that was not the case. She was very glad to see me come back to New York. So I came back 2 years ago and taught school for a year. And at the end of that time, went over to the General Service Office to share in the Friday noon meeting. They have a regular meeting there every Friday noon for out-of-town visitors or just for staff members there, and they recommended that I fill out an application, which I did. I filled it out, and I have a feeling that at that time there was a need to, well, they needed another staff member, and the job was offered to me. And I didn't know what to say because, again, I went to my sponsor. I said, look, I'm very happy with my sobriety as it is. I'm a member of my group and chairman of the beginners meeting, and I don't know about working at GSO. And she said, well, we'll take an inventory. So we took an inventory about teaching, and somehow through this process it seemed to be God's will to never say no. And I am so happy that I made that decision a year ago. I am so happy to have been given the opportunity to serve in this capacity. a year ago when I came to the office, they gave me the assignment of working with loners. And if it's done nothing else, it has improved my own sobriety. I know it's a selfish program, but I can't tell you how I feel when I go into that office in the mornings and receive letters from all over the world from people who are staying sober by themselves. I don't mean spiritually, but cannot find other alcoholics to carry the message to because of language problems, or maybe because they're on an island. But through this correspondence, there are about 500 or 600 loan members, and somehow I began to feel that, again, I was doing a service that was meant to be. There was something that these people taught me, this real reliance on a higher power, the spiritual side of the program. They have to ask God for help, as I do, not to take a drink. And how much some of these loners depend on literature and letters. And we have there are lots of loaner sponsors that are just regular AA members like you that correspond with these loners. And last year we wrote this loners meeting, which is a meeting by mail. And the loners write in on the steps. So every other month there was a step meeting by mail. And all I did was take their letters and put them into a meeting. And so we went through the 12 steps last year. They're no different than we are, but it's just such a fine quality of, it's so easy for me to talk and you to talk, and to think about putting it down on a piece of paper is something entirely. Then came to my first General Service Conference, and I met Bob there and Peggy from North Carolina, and we did work on this committee, and I could see all of a sudden the beauty of this whole structure of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's supposed to be never to be organized, but I could see when all the 91 delegates were there from all over the United States and Canada that it was a beautiful sharing experience. They make the decisions which come from the groups, and I could really see it happening. You know, for a long time I felt as an AA member that I didn't understand how we remained so unified and so together, and that whenever I went to California or the Midwest, that it was the same all over. Well, it's because we have these two beautiful concrete things. We have the steps and our traditions. And I don't think they're suggested. I think they are. At the conference, I could see that any delegate could get up and voice the opinion of his state, or any of the GSRs that had given him advice. He would speak up, and there were many delegates that got up and spoke about many things. Special groups were a big conversation there, and lots of talk about that. Eliminating the word two hats. Instead of talking about being a two-hatter, just talk about being a professional working in the field of alcoholism. And let's separate. Keep our AA membership to ourselves, and if you're a professional, then that's the way it should be. Bob and I were on this committee that talked about the charter, the charter, which I don't know, I got fascinated by it, and that's why I studied about it, because I found out that the right of minority opinion should be heard. So anybody in AA who has an opinion and feels something should be changed can be heard. And maybe they'll adopt that in the charter in the next 2 years, so that if the opinion is valid, it can be turned around and voted by the whole membership. It's really not up to the delegates or GSO, but it's up to the whole fellowship to participate in this. I can't see changing silly things. Like one letter came in that they wanted to have all the references referred to God as being H-I-E-R, him and her. And they wanted all the literature to be changed. Now that's a minority opinion, and it can be discussed, and the letter's going to be answered, but I think probably the majority in this room does not want to read literature saying, as we understand her, H-I-E-R. Now, I think that another thing that is so perfect and so wonderful is that there are really no laws. I'll give you an example. When I got out to Denver for the 40th Denver Convention, I was so excited about going to this thing. I heard so many thousands were coming, and I was going to meet some of the loners that were coming from across the globe. There was a man who lives in a lighthouse, and his name is Lighthouse John, and he stays sober in a lighthouse 9 months out of the year and writes letters. And he was going to be the speaker at the Loners Internationalists. I got there, and I forgot to tell anybody where I was staying. I told my fiancé, who's also in the program, where I would be staying, but I forgot to tell my family. And the next day I got there, my father died suddenly of a heart attack. And I had to leave. I had to come back. And I sort of was torn. I really wanted to be at the 40th convention, but I knew that I belonged home. So I came home before it started. I forgot the point that I was going to make. And so I don't remember what it was. I think it was something about the office, but I can share with you that when I got on the airplane, I didn't want a drink, but I had a thought of a drink. What I did was, I remember that chapter in the big book that says, there's going to come a time when your defenses are down and you're completely powerless over this desire to take a drink. And you're going to have to turn to a higher power. And I looked around the airplane and I saw that there was a priest there. And I said, I better go talk to him. So I went across, and he was having a martini. I went across and I said to him, I just said to him, I don't know what to do. My father is dead. It's just so sudden. And I'm at this convention that for alcoholics, and he said sit down. He talked to me for 10 minutes, and he said, you're going to go through a lot of emotions in the next few months. And there might be anger and sadness and everything, he said, but you have to remember that if you pray, and that you'll get through. And that's all I needed. That's all I needed. I could go back to my seat, I could read the grapevine or something, and get off the plane and do what I had to do. And I was so grateful to be sober during this time, because, as I said before, there was a lot of drinking during the services that followed, and I was sober and able to cope with my family. My fiance Don was an enormous help. He's been in the program 14 years. I think the power of example was there because 2 weeks ago my brother called me from Hawaii and he wanted help with alcohol. And I said, gee, Eric, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's very hard in the family to talk to a brother or a father. And I said, go to the intergroup office. And now I have no idea whether he is one of us by now or not, because I don't feel that I'm qualified at this time to share my experience, strength, and hope with him, because he knows that I've been sober 6 years and 3/4. The amazing thing about the death of Dad was that he drank every day of his life. And he said, this is a wonderful program for Susan. And he had gone to lots of meetings, but he just was, I can't identify anybody else as an alcoholic except myself. And the people that found him in the house were AA members. And that did something to me. There were 3 people who were members of Alcoholics Anonymous that were coming to look at the house, and they found him. In the meantime, one of these members, and I've never met him yet, decided to write a big article about how he found the program, and he broke his anonymity, and it was on the front page of the paper. And when I read this, I thought, oh dear, I think I should write him a letter about breaking our tradition. But then I said, no, I won't do it today. And then I thought about the next day. I thought I should also thank him for being so helpful during this time. And then the next day I said, no, it was a big lesson to me that I don't have to do everything, and it does take care of itself. But it was the first time I'd really seen what it's like to break your anonymity in the newspaper and sort of speak for the group in a town, because we have no bosses in AA. I really believe this. When my time is up at GSO, I will move on. Or when my time is up to be finished with the loners, which is right now, then I rotate an assignment. When your time is up as a chairman or as a GSR, we rotate. And this is our system of checks and balances that will never, ever spoil, I believe, because it works so well. It works so well that nobody can stay in office too long. And I'm simply amazed by looking around me and seeing how absolutely beautiful and brilliant this simple program is. Not only has it given me back my life, but it's also given me back the ability to love. So there we are into recovery and unity and service. And I think just by you being here and by carrying the message and sharing your experience, strength, and hope, the same as I do, that we're all going to stay sober today. I think that the most important thing that gets in my way is sometimes putting a personality before a principle. And therefore, the 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we continue to carry the message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. They're very important. As well as the 12th tradition, which is that anonymity is the spiritual foundation of this fellowship. And if I remember that, I'm sure that AA will be here for the rest of my life. And I need it, and I love it. And when I say thank you for my life, I really mean it, and I love you all.